morning. This is Gaming Perspectives with
Saul
and Jolene. And today the subject is, what are the big 5 TTRPGs?
Wow, just 5, huh?
And Saul, of course, took the question and made it his own.
I think I'm kind of correct.
Okay. Well, we'll see how you compare to what the other people say.
Right. And now I have them numbered, but they are numbered in no particular reason, only how they came into my brain. So they're like the best one, or the 5th is the least best one. It's just,
what are the top
5
ones that you think are top?
So number 1, no, it's not really number 1, is Traveler.
Oh my God.
I knew I was going to get that reaction from you.
Traveler's on everybody else's list,
Yeah,
too.
well, the reason I picked Traveler is because it is an early game. I think 1977. D&D came out in 1974, so 3 short years later, Mark Miller comes out with Traveler, his little 3 black books. And
my only suggestion for Traveler is don't use the 3 black books. Use the newer version.
Mongoose.
Where you don't have to die when you're creating your character, because it's very distressing when you go into all the trouble to roll the dice to create this character or whatever, choose whatever, and then all of a sudden you're dead.
You're jumping the gun, Jolene. So yes, it was if it wasn't the first one, it was one of the very first sci-fi RPG, science fiction. It's deceptively simple. 2d6, you roll them, you go over a certain number to succeed or not succeed, right? It's a lot different than D&D, right? You're talking about science fiction. 1977, I don't know if he was influenced by... I can't imagine that he was influenced by Star Wars, because Star Wars came out in 1977.
He was probably doing it before Star Wars came out.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, other previous ideas or books, maybe, instead of just movies. But anyway, it had some very cool ideas, or at least different ideas about character creation, right? Character creation, there's skills. There's not a lot of difference in people's abilities as far as their natural abilities. They had a lot less attributes, and they had skills which had a big impact on what your character could do and how they could do it.
Is Traveler the one with the tech dependent? You can choose the tech for the world, or is that somebody
the tech
else?
level? Yes. Yeah. Yes, they had that idea too.
So you could have it be like Firefly, or you could have it be like Star Wars or
hyperspace and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Correct. And the skills are randomly generated depending on what service you go into. So you kind of get a general idea of what possible skills you're going to get. But because it's kind of like a life path system, you are more or less given not a big choice as to what skills you can get. And so what happens is you end up with a character that is not completely planned out by you, because so many things are randomly generated.
And it depends on when you get out of the military, how much money you have, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and how old you are.
Yeah, and all that. It's a very interesting system. I particularly find it to be more of a space trucker system once you have your character created, because you're all these ex-military people, right? And you're going to different planets and picking up different stuff and trying not to smuggle stuff where people are gonna, or maybe you are smuggling stuff,
to make a lot more money. Yeah.
And it depends on how much money you want, how many ships how big your ship is, if it's your ship or if you're running the cargo for other people. So I always think of it as space truckers myself.
It could be that way. I mean, it could be like independent, investigators, private eyes, mercs. You could be, anything and everything is what your characters can be tasked with, either hired.
Oh, you could be spies,
or anything really. But the space trucker thing happens because there's a set of rules for buying goods on one planet and selling it on another planet, rolling some dice, and see how much money or profit you can make.
Most of the time, you get a job, and the job not only involves the getting stuff somewhere, but getting something else there, smuggling a person, or when you get to that planet, there's some kind of intrigue that somebody wants you to do something about. So it's a very interesting system.
And of course, as Jolene mentioned, that you could die in character generation, which for some thought it was fantastic.
And
I
for
thought
me, thought it was, now I got to create another character.
yes, I didn't understand that, but I understand it because they're trying to say, well, these guys are in the military theoretically, and they're in space, so there's a big chance that something could go wrong.
Which is true.
Which is true, right? It's realistic, and I'm using my
Air quotes.
air quotes, which you guys can't see, but it seems realistic, and a lot of people love the idea of making kind of like D&D, because in original D&D and even AD&D, you were supposed to roll your dice in a row or your attributes, and you just get stuck with whatever attributes you get, and then your hit dice or your hit points are rolled usually just a single die, and if you roll a 1 and you have no constitution bonus, you have 1 hit point. So it kind of mimics that night, that very early, well, it doesn't mimic, it does do it exactly, that very early RPG experience where you might get stuck with terrible attributes or a very weak character. But in this game, it didn't matter too much because it's not a combat game. It's about, well, there's a lot of weapons in the game, but it's about doing other stuff, investigating. It's about trucking. It's about being a private eye, James Rockford, or any other job that you could do to make money to pay off the ship that you are flying around in. So I thought it was really interesting in that sense. Now that I look back at it, it's interesting.
There are also because it's a space game, there are other games that have come about because either people didn't like Traveler or they thought they should do it a different way.
Of course. And I think another thing is that it's a very open world, but it's an open universe, right? It's a sandbox. They give you these rules, and later on or in the background there's this idea of this Imperium thing, but you don't even have to go into that. You can make up your own universe and play in your own whatever you create. So it's a very sandbox or open world game, and it's not D&D in space, right? You're not going, there's no dungeons that you have to go through and kill monsters and take their stuff. That's not going to happen, because that's not what is available in space. Really.
Traveler doesn't even have a magical aspect, does it?
No. Later on, they came out with psionics.
Psionics bit.
But I think that was influenced by Star Wars. Okay, any more comments about Traveler?
No. If you like Traveler, play it.
Well, I'm thinking the reason I even picked these is not because they were the most popular or the best selling, though I think
you were just thinking the biggest
influence.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and I think that Traveler did influence stuff, because didn't you you played Space Opera instead of Traveler because you saw it and picked it up. And
I didn't like Traveler.
You didn't like Traveler.
No. There's got to be something better. More stuff.
And Space Opera is incredibly crunchy, but it is different because you can play cats in space.
Yeah, they did have that.
It's a very much more. It's kind of like
more fantastical.
Yeah.
Yes, it's more Star Wars.
Yeah.
It was published in 1981.
Yeah. And there's others. There's different genre space games and different kinds of things like that.
Correct.
But Traveler, I can see why you put it on your list.
So let's move on from Traveler. The second one I have on my list is Call of Cthulhu.
Okay.
So the reason I picked this one is because, again, this is very early, at the very beginning of RPGs. I'm sure it was published before 1980.
And it's still being played.
The
time.
And published. The characters are weak compared to even D&D characters, right? Because they're facing gods or spiritual creatures that they can't usually fight off with normal means, right? They are also, this is a D100 base game, still a D100 base game, a percentage game. It was, I don't know which one came first, but now it's called the Basic Fantasy. I forget, Basic Role Playing game.
Yeah.
Right? Is the core rules. And I think the Call of Cthulhu, the subject matter is about the writings of this guy who invented this mythos in the 1920s and 30s about this great evil, that various gods that want to come to this world and destroy it. And the characters are people who either are just caught up in it or maybe want to try to investigate it. they get a taste of it, or whatever is going wrong, and they get curious, and in the curiosity, they realize what's going on. They try to stop it, and it usually doesn't end well for any of your characters.
Yeah, you have to be careful. There's the sanity mechanic.
The sanity stat.
So when you see this otherworldly or spiritual or occultish
Yes.
stuff, it can cause your sanity to go down.
Right, and you could lose your character that way, not just by
You lose them to a mental institution, which is
Jolene doesn't like that, but it was but it's true.
I understand the concept of it.
Yeah.
I'm just and I think it kind of makes sense, but I think sometimes people get, if they were doing that occultish stuff, they would get desensitized so that it wouldn't make go insane, right?
Right, but
Depending on what you see, it will.
Right. And I think the good thing about this game is that it really does hold true to the stories of H.P. Lovecraft.
Yeah.
And it tries to mimic the experiences of the characters in those books in the role-playing game.
And it's totally different than D&D, right? D&D,
Totally different.
you're heroes who are over the top.
Can be, yeah. after a
Call of
while.
Cthulhu, you are heroes who are weak and should know that you may not live very long doing what you're doing, right? But
Yeah.
you're trying to fix stuff.
Yes.
And then and there's other games where Cthulhu is there, right? Or well, it's not necessarily Cthulhu, but
The minions of
dark
Cthulhu.
dark conspiracy,
Yes.
where the alien gods, right? Or
It could be anything. And Dark Conspiracy was everything.
But see, it's a different tact, right?
Yeah.
You're more of a go out and kill those things that you see.
Right. You can blast them.
You can blast them because you got, not just little pistols, but you got big guns. So there's it's a different kind of game that you're playing. It's more intellectual, or trying to figure out how to do this without getting killed
Right.
or possessed. Because if you get possessed, you are not in control of yourself.
Right. All those things. Yes. I had those in my notes. You're perfectly correct. It's a totally different game. You're not going to, well, you could go into crypts and try to find ancient tombs to help you fight the evil that's incurring into your world.
But you may not live to sell those things.
Sell?
I thought that's what you meant.
No, not to sell, but to just find out how to stop it.
Oh, so then you are an occultist trying to stop it, or
Or something.
yeah.
Or just a regular person. Anyway, I think it was very interesting. Now, I think it's very interesting. Horror was never big on my list of games that I wanted to play. I pretty much avoided them. I don't think I've ever played in an actual horror game.
That is not true. You played in the Lindworm one.
Oh, yeah. Oh. And I did run Dark Conspiracy, so it was horror, but it was, I don't know. I guess
It was more Monster of the Week horror, right?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
Kind of. Yeah, you're right. And I think what I remember is, now this could be just, I just happened to be in that place at the right time, and this wasn't true for all Call of Cthulhu players. But I remember when I was in my first convention I went to here in the Bay Area. I was 16 or 17. People were playing Call of Cthulhu, and they would dress up. They would dress up in like suits of the 40s and 50s or whatever,
Or 20s and 30s.
and the hats and the fedoras, and then the women would dress in it's obviously some sort of period costume or dress. And I thought that was weird when I was like, man, those guys are weird.
I think that's cool.
Slowly, as I got older, and I don't give as much of a crap as I used to about what other people thought, I think it is cool. And I think when I think back about it or look back at it, I was like, this is kind of like the beginning of LARPing, right? In a certain sense, because they're getting into those roles, and I think I know why they dressed up is to help them get into those roles. Because
Well, because it's set in the 20s and 30s, right?
20s, 30s, 40s, something like that. Yeah, I'm not sure.
And that's
exactly
the
timeline.
style
Yes.
that would help you get into the mindset of that.
Yes,
era.
and this is not like heroic fantasy where your character keeps getting better and better and stronger until they are achieving, like, not godhood, but they are real tough hombres, right? And killing and slashing orcs like left and right, and going after big monsters and have a decent chance of killing them. In this game, it's more of there's less combat because combat will usually get you killed in the modern world or the real world. And so there's more role playing as the people are talking to each other more, and they're trying to talk to each other in character. So when you dress up in character, it's much easier to stay in character and role play more.
I always think of Call of Cthulhu as Indiana Jones. When they're on the island tied up, and he goes, "Okay, close your eyes because they're going to open the ark." Right?
Yes, of course,
And
exactly that.
That's what I think of it as. 'Cause that's what I see when the game is going.
Correct, exactly, and that's the time period. I think the 1930s is when Indiana Jones is going on. So I think it's a very interesting game because it focuses away from combat.
It also has a pulp kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
So there's a different, like, because I know depending on who's running the game, like if Shannon's running it, it's very serious.
Okay.
You're going after something, and
Right.
you're most likely going to die. If Morgan's running it, he has extra characters for you to take because you know you're going to die. And it's because we did that train one, and you got shot right away, and then you got to take another character.
I didn't get shot right away. I think I lasted most of the adventure. It was only toward the end where the bad guy was like really coming out, and they shot me in the head, and I died instantly.
Yeah,
It was not very fun.
but that one was a little more. I don't know.
It was a bit more action oriented.
Yeah. Because we were on a train, and you were trying to do stuff.
We were doing stuff.
Of course, I got possessed. I didn't realize I was possessed for a while, but then I
That's
finally
hilarious.
read the notes, and I was like, "Oh, okay." There's different styles depending on
Of course.
who's running it and how it's being run.
And even they've come out with different games that are more pulpy. There's Pulp Cthulhu, right?
Yeah.
And there's Delta Green, which deals with the Vietnam area, the 60s
Oh, wow.
area.
Yeah,
but
and- yeah.
that's more
Yeah,
kill
yeah.
things and stuff like that. But at the heart of Call of Cthulhu, it's just an investigative horror game.
Yeah.
You're supposed to investigate what's going on, figure out what's going on, figure out how to stop the incursion of the evil, and you're surviving. The adventure is not high on the list. Like even for the character, you're dealing with stuff that can easily kill you or make you go crazy or make you into a shriveled piece of jelly on the ground, and still you go on and still you want to stop this evil from happening. So very different game, an idea of what you're supposed to do than D&D.
And this is off of the top 5. We recently played in is it Brindlewood Bay? And
Correct.
there is an element of supernatural
yes,
stuff in
yes,
that one,
yeah.
and occultish stuff, and
Right.
and it's a very interesting that this kind of idea has made it into that kind of game, right?
Oh yeah,
Where-
it continues. Yes.
and it was very, I found it very interesting and intriguing that it was kind of cool that it was
yeah.
there,
Yeah.
kind of scary but kind of cool.
Right. The little supernatural element of
Yeah.
things. Yeah. And I'm gonna say it was probably the first, and I'm gonna say purely investigative game that was made.
Okay.
Where you're not out there.
I'll give you that.
You're not out there shooting it out with the bad guys, bank robbers, and stuff like that. And in fact, what you're doing is stuff that's just pretty normal. Looking at things, reading books, that kind of stuff. Next is Vampire the Masquerade. I gotta admit, I've never played this game, but the effects, the impact that this game made in the 90s and till today is still, you still feel it. It's still in public, it's still being published, and books are still being made, and people are still playing it.
And that is what's its own system, right?
World of Darkness.
World of Darkness.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and of course they came out
so
with
it
their
is
own
World
system.
of Darkness. Okay.
Yeah, they came up with their own system. It's different. Instead of hunting horror or fighting the evil, you're vampires. So
And
you are the
it's
evil.
a court intrigue game a lot.
Are the monster,
Yeah, which is
which probably is why I avoided it, I guess.
but it's not only a vampire because there's like werewolf and stuff too, right?
Yeah. I'm going to incorporate all.
I know,
those,
I
but-
understand you're
but
incorporating
Vampire
the
was
world.
first
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
And I don't know how long it took for them to come up with the next, which was werewolf. The next, of course, werewolf and vampires don't like each other supposedly in the lore.
I guess.
Yeah.
When you said that, I just thought of Twilight, and I was like, oh yeah, okay.
Well, before that, there was what was the name of that? The one with the British lady.
The British lady.
She's a vampire.
Oh, you're talking about the one that the actress that you like?
Yeah.
Blade or whatever. No,
No,
it was what was it?
That's Revolution. Anyway, yeah, in that lore, there's the vampires use werewolves as their protectors.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and until they broke away and
Well, I know when Vampire came out, Interview with a Vampire, the Anne Rice
big,
was
yes,
really big.
Yes.
So,
So what do you do in this world, in this game, if you're a monster?
well, like I said, it
feed
has
off on the helpless humans? Not really.
no. It's more court intrigue and
Right.
vampires fighting vampires and what I don't want to say clans because that'll put you into werewolf ideas, but the groups of vampires, different vampires.
Yeah, I think they're called houses
Or
tribes
courts. That's
courts,
what. Well,
clans. They call them clans, I think.
do they?
I think so.
That's the first word I used, but I thought that was werewolves. Anyway, clans is,
Yeah,
is
there was-
just from my personal.
Yeah, different
world.
groups who had like different agendas theoretically that tied them together, and they were opposed by other groups who had.
Right.
And this was about.
Jim Butcher calls them courts, the courts of the different
I think
vampires,
it-
right?
Yeah, well, yeah, you're right. Well, the courts, I think, are the different kinds of vampires, right?
Oh,
the
I don't
red,
know.
the black, and the white.
We're going into things that
Yeah.
Jolene doesn't really go into.
Yeah. So in this world, vampires are vampires, but they've been around a long time. So they're social. They what is it? They group themselves together. There's kind of like the high court, right? There's the people in charge, and then off of that, there's these other groups who are tribes, either by who sired them, by who made
Yeah.
them, and then they hold their loyalty to each other, and then of course other groups have that same problem or the same situation, and of course they're going to bump against each other as far as trying to get ahead and doing.
I
stuff
think
like
what
that.
really appeals
like you
to
said, court intrigue.
what appeals to people with this one isn't it that you figure out what you're going to do, you do it, and then you roll a die to see if you are successful, or is it? It's more role playing than die rolling.
Yes, there's more role playing because you're a vampire. There's not going to be a lot of fights, right?
Right.
So the situations are going to be more. What is it? Like you said, court intrigue. There's going to be more interplay between players and NPCs and between players than there is going to be between firefights down the street or in cars and stuff like that. So the focus is away from combat, even though there is combat mechanics, and the game is meant to be like you roll less dice because you don't need to. You're just having these role play moments and playing the game and getting into your character and stuff like that. It was hugely popular in the 90s. I don't know where I was in the 90s, but I didn't touch it. Supposedly people played outside. Another thing is people played outside. They started really kind of LARPing more. You know, they would get together supposedly in garages, public garages and stuff like that, and play this game. They'd show up in their overcoats and with makeup and stuff like that, and would play out in the public after dark. Which I don't know if that's true, but they definitely did do that. I don't know how widespread that was, but they definitely did do that. And I think the idea of playing monsters instead of the good guys really kind of changed things up for role playing in general.
I know you keep saying monsters, but I think if you're made a vampire and you're stuck in this vampire place, this
Right.
court, then it's not necessarily that you're playing a monster. It's that you're just playing what you are or what has happened to you, right?
Right, and that's an aspect of playing the game, right? The survival. You do need to feed on humans, but you can't feed on humans so much that it's going to arouse the suspicion of local police. You know, you kill too many people in one area, police are going to start hunting you, and sooner or later, someone's going to say, well, I saw this person that looked like this, and they may come to you. And then, of course, in the lore, there's like, they call them the Second Inquisition, which are priests and religious organizations that are specifically going out and killing vampires, right? So there's that you got to worry about. And I think there's that dichotomy between being a vampire monster and retaining your humanity, because there was this like mechanic where if you became too beastly, then you would lose your character.
It's
Like cyberpsychosis.
it's like Shadowrun, where if you become too much machine,
Yes,
you lose your
become
humanity.
Cyberpsychosis, exactly. Cyberpsychosis, I think, comes from cyberpunk, but in Shadowrun, if you lose too much essence, you basically lose your humanity, become more robot than
Human.
So in this case, there's that problem is like if you are too violent and do too much stuff, you lose your humanity, and then you really have to be wary of that because you could lose your character that way. So again, it's just these really different concepts as to what kind of game as a player you're going to play and what your character is like.
So what's the next one?
Of course, before we can move on, there's investigation. You're trying to find out what things happen in this game and stuff like that. So it's not purely this political game, not purely the survival game. There's also ideas that you go out and investigate stuff and solve problems for your clan or your elders or whatever you call them. The next one I'm going to say is kind of a combination of two, is Savage Worlds and GURPS. And to me, this has changed the idea that they're trying to make a game that's generic, that you can play anything you want, any kind of setting. Just, I know I'm waving my hands to show action, but you're just throwing things in, and this game will handle it. This set of rules.
Yes.
So for me, GURPS, I think, started it, and before Savage World came about, and GURPS, I mean, it's a dumb name, right? And it stood for General Universal Role Playing System.
Yes.
And that was a joke name, right? And then they never came up with another one, so they just stayed as GURPS. And the weird thing is that it just gave you a basic idea of not a basic idea. It gave you a system that would handle almost any situation, and then people would create a setting and use those rules to run that setting.
I think the heavy lifting comes when you start a game.
Yes.
You whatever genre or whatever you're going to do.
Correct.
The GM needs to say, you have this many points, build your character. We're not using
this and this. And
yeah.
that. Exactly. And so I can understand that some people go, well, I don't want to do that. So they actually came out with books with settings.
That help,
right?
yeah.
That will tell you everything you need to know.
Is it Savage Worlds or GURPS that has the dinosaur setting?
They have all kinds of settings.
Anyway.
Wow. I don't know about the dinosaur one. Well, GURPS became very famous because they put out a heck ton of setting books from there's a set of books that deals with the Horse Lords. It's some sort of fantasy game. And so they came out with that, and they come up with World War II books and World War One and all kinds of different settings, like historical settings.
A lot of people love GURPS, and a lot of people love Savage Worlds because of that they
Correct.
can, that it's generic enough that they can create whatever they want.
Right.
And then they pick whatever their genre is, and they can find something.
Right. And they can go buy it if it's something that they're interested in. So GURPS, there's not much you can say. We've talked about it to death before. But it helps the idea of a generic system. It helps GMs and players play in any kind of setting that they want to, with a little work.
That was 4, right?
That was 4. And 5, I'm going to say the OGL, OSR, self-publishing. Right?
What are the big 5 tabletop RPGs? I think you've left one out. If you're going to say it. If that is your last one.
Well, I say this because it encompasses this idea that, especially the OSR, right, the old school revival, old school Renaissance. This idea that, and it can only be created because of the OGL, and this idea that they can make any game they want with any rules. I mean, OSR came out, anything under OSR, like things that are under the OSR are like a space game. The white box, it's like mimics Star Wars, but this still uses the original type of rules. You know, you still have the 6 characteristics and hit points and all that stuff. And there's all different types of books and settings and ideas. And now there's even games that are on their own. Like there's Shadow Dark is a huge game by OSR, and it's just people love that game because it gives them that nostalgia feeling. It lets them do what they want to do, and it's a very exciting system for them. And I think you cannot. There's so many games under that umbrella that I couldn't name one, so hence I put them all underneath the big umbrella of OSR. And then of course, because OSR usually is a very independent publisher, meaning that usually it's a one person show, that self-publishing comes into that. I mean, the OSR with the OGL, OSR, Creative Commons license that are being done, and the idea that, and with the fact that you can self-publish almost anything you want, almost easily, right? If you have enough gumption, you could do it. It's possible, and you can put it out there. And even if you don't make physical books, you can put a PDF out there.
So you talked about these 5 that you like, as you see them as the big ones. There's all kinds of people give all kinds of opinions, right?
Oh, yeah, there's always opinions.
I think a couple of the ones that you didn't mention were, let's see, Warhammer.
Yes.
And then they talked about Apocalypse World, which you didn't mention at all.
I was going to put a top 10 of stuff that, or another top 5, and I was going to put Apocalypse World on that.
And I think Apocalypse World is very popular.
Very popular, and it's same thing like the OSR,
Yeah.
right? It spawned because the guy who made it, I think it's Vince.
Powered by the Apocalypse?
Yeah, Vince Baker, I think it doesn't matter. But he said you can do anything you want with this system.
Right.
You can change it, fix it, do all kinds of stuff. And people have, like the OSR, like the OGL, they have run with it and they have changed it to where it is a pretty amazing what you can do with it. Like, what's the game with the animals we play? Root, right?
Yeah.
Very different than Apocalypse World, which is about the end of the world and people trying to survive to the end of the last day on Earth.
And you didn't mention Fate.
I know. Fate was a big one for me because it was the first game that didn't have attributes. The attributes were just
Sentences.
A sentence of some sort, a description.
Which you really liked.
Which I really liked. And
a lot of people like it.
Yes, a lot of people like it. And it's supposedly a really simple, reduced type of game, but they've actually reduced it some more to the point where, like, instead, I really thought it was a rules light game, but it's not really rules light, the core rules, which is a Fate core. There's a lot of little levers and stuff that you push and pull. They've made it even easier by coming up with
Fate Accelerated.
Fate Accelerated. And that one seems more light to me than Fate Core and more along the lines of what light games should be like.
And then I would like to mention that in the lists, this one person said, you cannot put Shadowrun in here because their newest version isn't good. To which I'm like, well, pick a version because Shadowrun is a great game.
I would have put Shadowrun on there, but
it's more niche than some others, right?
Well, I really like the idea of this urban fantasy, right? And it takes urban fantasy to way different heights than most normal. It's not like the Dresden Files, right? And it puts it in the future, and it really mixes fantasy and science fiction.
Yes,
and some people don't like mixing their peanut butter with their chocolate, but I absolutely loved that.
Shadowrun is a great game. If you haven't played it, I don't know if it's one of the top 5, but I would do it.
I think it's probably one of the top 10 games out there that people have played.
Yeah.
But some people just hate the idea of mixing science fiction and fantasy. Now, I don't know why.
I think it's more that they don't like the fact that it's a very crunchy system.
No, people don't like the idea that I remember hearing podcasters, I just don't think Shadowrun's good because I don't like my and that's
sci-fi and
my fantasy. It doesn't make sense to them. And then another person on the podcast, I think it might have been Fear the Boot years ago, and the other person goes, I don't like my chocolate with my peanut butter. And I stole that line. But I totally disagree. The first time I saw the cover and I read the first edition book, I go, wow. It might have been second edition. And the rules, to me was like the setting was what makes that game. And the rules were like
The rules are just you just
you
learn.
roll 6-sided
Yeah.
dice, and you had to get a target number.
Yeah.
So it's different than the new one, where
With the dice pool?
the latest ones, at least 5th edition, where you're trying to you still have a dice pool, but you're trying to get just sixes. Was it fives and sixes?
Fives and sixes.
To succeed, and you need so many successes to succeed. There is a new cyberpunk. No, there is the new Shadowrun Anarchy, which was supposed to be the rules light version of 5th edition, but didn't really catch on. They didn't like the ideas behind it or how it worked. There is going to be a Shadowrun Anarchy 2.0 made by a French company called Black Book Editions, which looks pretty good, I hate to say.
And then there's there's two more games that you
Okay.
didn't mention that are probably the biggest games out there. I'll also go with Pathfinder.
It's just D&D to me. It just is D&D to me. I mean,
I
originally
understand.
it was.
And then D&D. You didn't say anything about D&D because
there's
you
nothing-
just thought you didn't have to say anything.
Yeah, I
about
don't
it?
got to say nothing about D&D. It is the original game. It is the most popular game. It's the most world-renowned game. If somebody says, "Oh, I play role-playing games," "Oh, you play D&D?" If they know anything, I go, "No, I don't play." Well, I thought you were playing role-playing games, right? And they're like, "There is more than D&D." What? What are you talking about? So I don't really have to say that, and I know it's the biggest game out there, and so it's like.
I understand. I'm just going to tell you that there was one person that was making their lists that had D&D 4 times and then Pathfinder for the 5th one, which I thought made me laugh because I thought that was pretty funny.
Yes, and I think there's too much D&D out there.
Oh, if there could be too much. Anyway, I understand, but I'm just saying you didn't put it on your list.
Yeah,
as the top,
purposely
as the,
I didn't put
the
that
big
as a-
5. I know.
And like I said, people say Pathfinder. I know the 2nd edition Pathfinder is substantially different than 1st edition Pathfinder, but I don't think it's that vastly different that it's unrecognizable.
I don't know.
It's connected.
You have like a whole shelf of Pathfinder first
Yes, I do.
edition books
Yes.
that I'm looking at.
Yes.
So we played that forever with the kids because
Right.
they loved it.
Yeah. Well, it's not like I don't like it or that I didn't like it at all or anything like that. It's because what happened was when when D&D, well, not D&D, when Wizards of the Coast / Hasbro, I don't know if Hasbro owned it by then, but when they said we're gonna go to 4th edition and they made 4th edition, and for me 4th edition was kind of like unrecognizable as not being D&D anymore for me, just by reading the I never bought any other books, and it seemed more board gamey, right? Like there is games like the what is it, the Ashelon game and the vampire game, a board game where and it has these action surges and
Yeah.
cards, and so D&D 4th edition was a lot of that. So I think it was trying to bring people into the game that were
In a different way.
that were associated with computer games, and I
Right.
think that's what it was after. And it just didn't appeal to me. So they said we're gonna stop making 3.5, and then Paizo, which was making all kinds of adventures for D&D, goes, oh, that's our money. So they go, well, we're just gonna use the OGL and come up with Pathfinder, our own game system, and that's why I jumped to Pathfinder and not 4th edition, because it seemed like an offshoot of D&D 3.5, and a lot of people call it 3.75, right? That you've heard that
I have
that
heard.
joke before.
I have heard people say that.
Yes, and so it was recognizable as D&D for me, and you continue until they made 5th edition, and I wasn't even wanting to jump. To
I
5th
know
edition.
because you had all the Pathfinder books.
Right, and my son read the damn book. And
Because I
goes,
like this, Dad.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
So now we have a whole shelf of D&D 5th edition books.
Though they're all older books now. I mean, obviously, because those are 2014 books.
Yeah.
They came out 2024
Yes.
books. I'm not buying those.
He says right before he buys something.
No, I'm not going to buy them because it's just D&D, just slightly changed. And for me, like everybody says, you don't have to keep going with the latest edition if you don't
No.
want to, and just play your game and still have fun. And I bought those freaking books and I'm going to freaking use them, right?
And we do.
And we do.
Yeah.
Right? There's no need for me to buy 2014,
2024.
2024 and then put those on the shelf and use them for ornaments.
I just wanted to end the episode by making sure that you did talk about some of the
the real big ones.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. No, and of course, there's games out there that people really love that I didn't mention. Cyberpunk, right? You mentioned Shadowrun. Cyberpunk was a huge deal back in the early 90s and stuff. And I really wanted to play Cyberpunk because I was totally engrossed with the idea of it. And having read William Gibson books and stuff like that. Yeah, when you say top 5, I gotta do a lot of cutting there.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's everybody, right? Well, unless you just play D&D, or then you know that's,
then you get the 4 D&D and 1 Pathfinder,
which is pretty funny.
That was funny.
Good luck on whatever your top 5 games are.
Right. Of all time.
Of all time, yes. So there you go. This is Gaming Perspectives with
Saul
and Jolene.
And you have a good day.